All right, so I wanted to talk about the CER and stuff. I actually used someone's real example here because what I was noticing was I noticed a lot of people are making the same mistake. All right, and so I wanted to go over an example with you guys. Right, so most people here, right, we got the directions. Make sure you guys read all the directions because most people who did it, number one, was fine, like the words and definitions. Right, we got the words highlighted over here. Here's the definitions, easy peasy. But a lot of people, like 90% of people who turned it in, skipped number 2, right? So what you guys are supposed to do is, for number 2, either highlight the main idea of each paragraph or write a little summary for each couple paragraph section. I don't really need it for each paragraph, but every couple. This person here, she decided to do the highlighting of the small portion. So pretty easy right there. Now, what I really wanted to focus on is the CER on the bottom of the page. All right, because a lot of people I feel like, were very, very confused on this. And so I'm going to scroll down here. And a refresher on the assignment, remember that a CER, so it stands for claim evidence reasoning. And I know writing is not everyone's favorite, but again, I firmly believe that if you can read well and you can write well, you're going to be successful. Now, super important, too many people nowadays, like even especially online, like they'll post something, but like they'll just say like, well, my opinion is this and whatever. But like, where's your evidence, right? Opinions don't really matter, especially in science. Like your opinion does not matter. I remember I learned that lesson in college. My first lecture, I raised my hand like a freshman, like, oh, I know everything. And then I said something that was just like very stupid without evidence. And my teacher like humiliated me in front of like 200 people. And that's something I'll never forget. And he's like, well, you have no evidence of that, so your opinion's stupid. And I was like, okay. It's like, cool. Anyway, but what we really like to do in science, and this is good to get in the habit anyway, is you always need to be talking about your evidence and, hey, what do you have? How do you support your idea that you are correct, right? So that's why I kind of set up this. Now the question, right, it says, will the current COVID-19 pandemic cause major changes in the size of the U.S. population? If for the ones that I got, the claim and the evidence were pretty easy. Most people can always get that. So just kind of a refresher that your claim, you're pretty much answering the question. There's no explanation to it, right? This person just said, yes, I think that the COVID-19 pandemic is going to cause a big population change. Okay, fine. Now, for the evidence, right, your evidence is just straight from the article. So for our evidence here, right, she said, it's a little bit of a quote, so it's not the full thing. It's from the article, though. It says, that said, the number of people saved by the inactivity of the pandemic is far smaller than the number of whose lives it takes. And evidence number 2, even if the U.S. were issuing visas at its regular rate, the country would likely be less enticing, meaning less appealing, destination than usual. It seems a little bit out of context. You can use the whole thing, but if you read the article, it talks about that. But notice here on the evidence, she doesn't say, which is why blah, 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 or why I think the pandemic is going to affect pop. It's just straight evidence, right? So the claim, super easy. Just answer the question, none of your thoughts. Evidence, just what you're going to use to help support your idea. All of your thoughts and your background and your elaboration, that comes in the reasoning, right? And this is always the part that gives people a big problem here, is the reasoning is you using your claim and your evidence and elaborating a little bit on it to almost like persuade me as the reader that like why you are correct. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read this to you guys. I don't know how big it's coming up on your screen. That's why I'm going to read it here. This is not a perfect example, but it's a good start. There's a little bit of miswording in here too, but overall it's a decent first time. It says, I believe that this pandemic will cause a major decrease in the population. Right there, she references her claim right away. So that's super duper important. There are several pieces of evidence as to why my statement is correct. One of them being that normally people die and more are born, which keeps the population somewhat similar, meaning births cancel out from deaths. However, with the pandemic going around, a larger number of people are dying at once, which decreases the population because there are also many pregnancies that are being postponed due to COVID-19. That was talked about in the article. To this, people might say that there are still people being saved. people being saved, because if it weren't for this pandemic, there would still be car crashes and other things causing death. Okay, so here's where she starts kind of putting the evidence in here. Evidence number one. That said, the number of people saved by the inactivity of the pandemic is far smaller than the people's whose lives it takes. Okay. It says the author states that these portions of people are a lot smaller than the people who have died due to COVID-19. To follow, so I think she could have used a little bit more elaboration on evidence number one, but she elaborates more so on evidence number two. To follow, the amount of people that come to America and start new lives have generously dropped due to the cancellation of traveling. Here's evidence number two. Even if the United States were issuing visas at its regular rate, the country would be a less enticing destination than usual. As of right now, again, here's where she elaborates a little bit. As of right now, you are able to travel, but it's not so pleasing to travel to America knowing that we have the highest amount of COVID cases, therefore the population of America is and might dramatically decrease, right? So I think it probably could have been said like, if she's talking about we're not issuing as many visas, well, if there's less visas, there's less people coming into the population, therefore decreasing it, right? But I wanted you guys to see that it's not just copying and pasting, because I had a couple people like copy their claim, copy their evidence, paste it all together, and was like, and for that reason, I am correct that the population may or may not drop. So I'm like, what are you doing? So I wanted you guys to really see that it is important not only do you put your evidence in there, but you talk about it a little bit. Okay. So give me like a yes or no here.